Hello, future millionaires. Welcome back to the Get Rich Slow podcast. I'm your co-host, Adrian Shermer, and I am joined by two of my favorites today, Robert Delavan and Lance Johnson. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good to be Today, here. We are going to be talking about goals and dreams. Lance is going to be kind of at the head of this. I'm really interested to pick your brain, Lance. And I think one of the first questions I want to start with is, let's do a little differentiation here because these are kind of interchangeable terms for some folks, but I think there's a difference.
Yeah. Well, let's take I usually ask a question to clients, what's the difference between a goal and a dream? And if I was to ask you guys that, give me your definition.
Well, a dream is something that you've always wanted, right? And the difference in my mind between a dream and then a goal is something that's actually planned out, that we have specific steps to get there, right? So those are the goals on the way to the dream. So it's in my mind stepping stones.
Okay. And Adrian, you?
Yeah, I think there's I guess in my mind, a dream is like a reach. It maybe should be something that you hope for, but hasn't been planned out yet. And then goals are the stepping stones to get to a dream. You should be laying out goals as like the structure that gets you up to that point.
Oh. And I see them as much the same as you do. I kind of use the example of if you're walking down Long Beach, as soon as you draw a line in the sand when you're going to accomplish things, so that line in the sand is the line of time. So as soon as you put a time frame that I'm going to take those dreams and try to make them fruition or steps towards really accomplishing, right, you bring it from a 30,000 foot level to a 10,000 or 5,000 foot level because you put a timestamp on when you like to accomplish these things. So dreams and goals are very close in my mind, except for the line of time. Once you put lines of time, you then start making progress towards it. And so I use the example of being half pregnant. You really can't be half pregnant. You either
love this term.
are
Yeah.
or you're not, right?
Right.
I mean, everybody can understand you're either pregnant or you're not pregnant, and so you either are making steps towards your dreams or you're not. And so don't be half pregnant is let's start putting some timelines, keep dreaming, start making those things goals, and that's those timelines. Once you do that, everything starts to flow downhill, and that's kind of the difference for me.
And what is the typical response you get when you give that analogy?
Have pregnant, it's really interesting because if it's a bunch of guys, it's like, hey, have pregnant. We don't really understand about what being pregnant is. And when there's females in there, they understand you either are or you're not. There's a whole set of protocols that happen when you're becoming pregnant, the vitamins you're dealing with too, the body transformation. We have no concept of that. And so females understand it much better.
Does a little bit of a beer belly count?
That's funny.
Yeah, I guess we can move
Not quite
on.
The same digressing
again.
So we know the answer, and we've already kind of discussed this, but the one piece of advice when it comes to financial wellness, right?
Yeah. So there's a premise. There's a premise here. The premise is you haven't reached financial independence yet. And so a lot of people, that you have to define what financial independence is for you. But let's just assume you're just one of those people that you're still accumulating wealth, not in the retirement or estate planning phase of life, and that you're accumulating and trying to move yourself towards financial independence. Okay. So is there one thing I could teach a person that would not guarantee it, but improve the probability that by the time you do get to age 55, 60, 65, whenever you're retiring, that you become more financially independent? And there is one thing that if I could teach somebody, regardless of income, regardless of where they started with, that is saving 20 to 25% of their gross income, which seems simple, but there's a lot that goes into those numbers and why those numbers work and what needs to happen for those numbers. But if you could do that or better, the probability of achieving it sooner or faster, it goes up. Again, no guarantees, just you're improving the probability. And what happens is time is one of those things that you can never make up. So we're utilizing time. A lot of times people come to me late in life and they're on a time crunch. And so it really gets essential to them getting to that stage of improving. But it doesn't matter what income you're making. I shouldn't say it doesn't matter. There is, in Portland, if you're a family of 5 making $60,000, it's probably harder to do 20 to 25% because of the fixed cost of life, feeding people, housing people.
Right.
But yeah,
we're not trying to cut necessities out too.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing I try to focus people on is committing, trying to get them to that stage, which takes me about 2 to 5 years working with somebody. And it depends on, where they're at in their careers. Obviously, potentially a 50-year-old is having a higher income than that same 50-year-old at age 30 because they're starting their careers, right? It depends on when you have kids. Like I had kids later in life, so it's a little harder than if you had kids right when you got out of college and then they're off. You're an empty nester at age 50.
Off the payroll, so to speak. That's the goal, right?
Yeah.
But that would be that's
Maybe.
That's the one thing that nobody can argue is the saving percentage that's going to improve the probability of money making more money for you and you getting to financial independence sooner.
So then I'll ask the question. So if somebody is spending, basically every dollar they earn, how would they achieve, that goal? How would they hit that line in the sand, if you will?
Yeah. So we break down, so there's lifestyle expenses, what's the cost of just your lifestyle. So I play hockey. Hockey's an expensive sport. I golf. That's my lifestyle. Other people will run and some people will do triathlons and swim. Some people have kids and like to vacation a lot. Other people will camp, instead of taking expensive trips to Hawaii, they might camp and do things that are cheaper. Whatever your lifestyle is, if you look at your gross income, your lifestyle expenses, which is size of house, utilities, discretionary expenses like vacationing and birthdays and gifts, your lifestyle expenses needs to be 50% of whatever your gross income is. If you can keep it underneath that, and it's just one of those rules of thumbs, then you're more likely to be able to save 20 to 25%. And then you're saving, the question is, are we trying to stretch our dollars today and reduce our taxes? So using saving strategies that reduce current taxes, that allows you to stretch dollars. And then we have to deal with debt. If debt is part of your lifestyle, if we can reduce tax dollars and use those tax dollars to pay down debt, the quicker we can pay down debt, frees up cash flow, you're more likely to accomplish those things. So it's really diving into where you are now and figuring out the right strategy that over time is going to get you to that 20 to 25%.
So it seems like there's a dozen things or so that are small incremental changes or issues to address that if you tackle, 1 and 2 and 3 and, work your way through, you can get there.
Yeah, it's kind of what we often call like a snowball effect. What is the first thing that's going to be the biggest impact to your life, whether it's taxes or paying down debt or cash flow? If we can pay down debt, let's say somebody's has high reserves and they don't know what to do with the reserves, and we could pay down debt to free up cash flow. And then you take that cash flow and put in something that reduces taxes now. And you take those taxes to put something that reduces taxes later on, like a Roth IRA and HSA. All those things are just, the question is, what is your snowball effect, the most impactful thing? And that's really where financial planning and kind of modeling out these things would help you get a jump on things.
So what's the most common like misconceptions or pushback that you typically have when you present this idea of 20 to 25% of savings?
Well, the first thing is people think like that's up and beyond their 401ks and retirement plans, and 20 to 25% includes all that. The other thing is they're focusing on 20 and 25, and let's say they're at the 5% range. I mentioned it takes me 2 to 5 years to get there. And so what I focus on, how do I get a client to free up debt that frees up cash flow by 3%? And then if I could put that 3% or 4% into a retirement that frees up 1% of taxes, all of a sudden now I've increased their scenario by 5%. I'm taking small steps, and maybe that takes a whole year to do that. We incrementally go up 1% every quarter. That's one thing. Second thing is people think tax returns are a saving strategy, and it's not. People that get tax returns tend to already spend it before they get it. And so if we can get it during the month or every pay period by adjusting your withholdings, you get to put that stuff into things that reduce debt and taxes. And so the misconception is your big refund is a savings program. It's not. I rather utilize it during the year to.
That's a loan you gave.
Yeah.
You basically gave a loan to the government.
Right.
I think that's fascinating. And that kind of ties into that psychology, right? Of this whole process, that you can do that without having to shove your money into the government and then get it back. You can just do it in a separate lane and then have it already be working for you every month that you're putting that money in. Whereas you would have had to wait until the end of the year to access. I mean, it works for some people. It's a forced savings account, but I agree that it's a better strategy to just get in front of that.
Yeah. I try to shelter my money from me.
Yeah.
And if I can do that, I tend to spend less and save more. The psychology that you talk about is actually the spender. One of our podcasts we did is the spender versus the saver.
Sure.
And it's the mentality of paying yourself first and doing it economically that reduces taxes and puts money in the right place that grows for you. And especially over the last 12 years, especially over the last 2 years, where the market has been incredibly better than we ever expected during a pandemic. That was useful tips to get them to save 20 to 25% on years that when we started, we never thought that the market would be as good as it turned out to be during the last 18, 24 months.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's, so the last question I would say, so we have here, where would you recommend then they save instead? Like what direction would you point them?
Well, I mean, obviously retirement plans through work are a big one. Roth IRAs, we did a whole podcast about why Roths are so important. HSAs are important because that's, if used for medical, that's pre-tax, tax deferred, and tax-free used. So anything that gives you tax advantageous 529 plans, saving money for real estate, a vacation rental or a regular conventional rental, those are all good. And so I'm always often trying to give people scenarios that are going to help them in taxes. Just a brokerage account set aside is helpful, a savings account, all sorts of things. So the fact that they save instead, so where would you recommend they save instead? These are all conventional stuff. And then even paying down debt is going to put you in a position to save more in the future. So, when the market's incredibly high, like it's been, I might try to retire debt and free up cash flow. So when the market comes down, we're dollar cost averaging in. So a lot of them are just, what's the comfortability of the strategy for the client? What's their mindset? And what can they get behind and actually implement? And, those kind of have to align for each client, and every client's different.
So this concept, going back to the very beginning, right? The goals and the dreams. Instead of dreaming and being half pregnant, let's dream, but then turn that into goals. So we're going to draw lines in the sand, which are going to represent the time, the progress, if you will. And the common thread I'm seeing is save. Yes. I mean,
pay yourself first.
Right.
Let money make money for you. Be tax efficient. Also be cognizant of not getting into too much debt or paying down debt. Sometimes if you save and you free up tax dollars, use those tax dollars to pay down debt, you're stretching your dollars. A lot of people will pay down debt, but if they actually save, they'll reduce taxes, and the tax money that they reduce can be applied towards debt, and you're getting further ahead.
Right.
So it's kind of like you come into work and I know you have staff. And so do I do all the work myself, or do I, look at my emails and start delegating some of the stuff early in the day? So by the end of the day, the stuff is getting done. That's kind of the same thing in business, and the personal level and the financial level is pay yourself. That frees up tax dollars, and the tax dollars go to work for you.
Right.
Yeah. That's hard to argue.
So don't be half pregnant with your dreams. Save, right?
Yeah. Get going on.
You're in or you're out. Yeah.
Do it today, not later. And just one side note on that is, oftentimes I reference past, present, and future. And the happiest people are the ones that are learning from the past, have some dreams about the future, but are walking every day in the sand towards their dreams, their future, based on the knowledge they have of the past. And so we're just trying to get people to live today, working towards their goals. And those are generally the happiest people.
Yeah. Incredibly fulfilling concepts, dude.
Yeah.
Very, very insightful. It's almost more of a psychological human condition thing than, than just this concept of, hey, I'm saving for my retirement. You're living.
Yeah. So, and it's a habitual thing. It starts to, I've watched people follow this pathway, and it's very, it's a fulfilling thing, because you realize that, I don't know, we all kind of scale with our income. So if you can deliberately make this decision to beat out the inner voice in yourself that says, let's just spend it, we earned it. Let's take the gamble on ourselves, right? The gambler's fallacy of, I'll make another, I'll start saving next month. That's a rolling problem that kind of snowballs in a different way. So,
yeah.
Some people think that if they save, they can't spend. And that's not true, because what happens is once you get the ball rolling downhill, the ball grows. And so if you spend 1x now, you can't save. But if we saved 1, 2, 3x, then all of a sudden down the road, due to the market conditions, the ball has grown, and you can actually spend 4, 5, 6, 8x later on. So it's a now versus later scenario of using the compounding of returns and interest and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you see a change too? Just we're talking about the psychology of this, and how people behave then in their life. I know I worked in sales for most of my life. Guys who needed that sale to pay rent always had a harder time selling because they had the pressure on their back. That you could hear it in their voice. You could hear the hunger, and not in a good way. I'm talking about a desperate hunger, and the kind of desperation that desperate decisions are usually, right. I mean, the term desperate decision is not something that's got a lot of positive connotations. You obviously often have to take a short-term hit. So having this buffer in your life is an empowering thing, would you say?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. Is balance in life, the having good reserves, not feeling the pressure, following excellent processes. These are all just common themes and strategies that people write books on to help everyday business owners like us improve our situation. And saving, I could write a whole book on saving and why, the power of that. It's just not as fun as spending, right?
Right. Well, but here's the thing.
This is the sexiest topic.
on the other end, it's pretty darn fun when you're at like 4, 8x, right?
Yeah.
So awesome. All right, guys. Well, let's leave it at that. Thank you for listening. Hope the audience got something out of this today.
Good deal. We'll catch you next week.
All right.